I always felt my calling was to serve in the military. And it ended up being, I was originally going to join the Army, and then I just kind of stumbled upon the Coast Guard, and I was like, oh my gosh, I get to save people. I get to help them when they really need it. I also get to do this federal LE, law enforcement missions that are stopping drugs and terrorists and weapons from being smuggled in, and like a lot of cool stuff. So then I have these injuries, and it's like, oh, you have to get out. Well, my career plan was the military.
What were the injuries, if you don't mind me asking?
Yeah, no, a lot of herniated disc in my back, low back. 10 years of rough seas and on a small boat. My back absorbing all the shock. Yeah. So it was a condition that was never going to get better. Yeah, we have a lot of that, shoulder and knee injuries, neck injuries too. Yeah, and I actually have 3 herniated discs in my neck.
From the boats,
Yeah. Yeah. You know, we're also wearing heavy gear. You know, I was wearing, at times rough seas, we had these Kevlar helmets that were heavy. And you're jolting around in your neck often. And
yeah.
So, and then, when I did the LE stuff, we had the lighter, like the helmets that you always see the special ops guys wear. They're lighter, but you're still wearing nods. You still have all this weight on it.
You add it all up.
Yeah, and you got the counterweights in the back.
No one piece is heavy, but then you put it all up. Yeah. You're right.
Yeah, and then all your vest, your gun, your ammo, all your equipment. So yeah, and so then it was like, okay, well, I knew I always wanted to be a police officer when I got out of the military. So it's like, okay, I'm gonna go do that. So I'm doing that, and then it's like, oh my gosh, I'm not healthy. I can't do this anymore. So now I've been in that, what's my purpose? Just had this feeling of a calling, and now I don't. And I still, even with after action, I still struggle feeling like, is this my purpose? Is this what I'm to do? Because I always felt like I had that clear feeling of God wanted me here. God wanted me there. I walked away from going to church, but I never lost faith. So I did always feel that, God still had my calling, telling me you need to be here. So now it's that, I've left the job. So what's my purpose? What am I supposed to do? Who am I? So much of us is identified in our job. When you lose that, you feel like you lost yourself.
Welcome to episode 48 of the podcast. This will be a 1-2-parter, 48 and 49. I'm Andy Jenkins, and that's my friend Duffy. He spent 10 years in the Coast Guard, followed by 6 as a police officer. In these 2 episodes, we're going to dialogue a little bit about why did he get in and why did he get out, and all of the ups and downs, all in between, and what is he doing now. We're going to walk into part of his story, and I say part of it because this is not the entire story of who he is. If you are in military, you're a veteran, you're law enforcement, first responder. I guess anybody could do this with any particular job profession. It seems that so often it's easy to conflate who we are with what we do. And then when you bump into a scenario that leads you to an off-ramp from that profession, whether it's time or whether it's trauma or even something else, that tension then arises of who am I and what now is my purpose? So I'll tell you, if you're veteran military law enforcement, you're listening, welcome. I'm so honored to have you going on this journey here. If you're not, I promise there will be takeaways that you will be able to relate to based on really your identity, and also based on some of the trauma that Duffy is going to talk about. Some of it may be different details for you. Some will be similar, but we'll weave it all through and talk about the idea of wholeness and healing. Now, that said, let's roll right into it. Here's what to listen for as we begin. The neighborhood that you serve may not actually be in favor of your service when you're in law enforcement. Sometimes they will actually side with the perpetrators. And then after kind of rolling that out, we're going to dialogue about an officer-involved shooting that Duffy was in. So here it is. Let me just get rolling with more of his story.
And that was, we were on a call, beautiful spring day, like, one of the first great spring days. We're in a housing community. We had a CI, a confidential informant, that called us and was like, hey, there's this guy here. He's got a backpack full of drugs. One that was really wanting to help get the community clean, but they do it in certain ways because then they become targeted. So we get out there, bunch of guys on the basketball court. We see the guy that our CI, our confidential informant, had described, and he's wearing a backpack. And so we're trying to talk to him, see what's going on. I'm like, hey, can we get your ID? He won't give it to us, doesn't want to tell us who he is. So my partner goes to detain him. There's actually about 5 of us there.
Did he play the sovereign citizen card, or was he just pushing back?
He's just pushing back. We knew that he didn't want us knowing who he was because he probably had warrants. He wasn't stupid. He knew what was happening. It's a game, and they know it. And
yeah, but the fastest way to get arrested is just to not provide your ID and get detained for failure to identify yourself.
I know, yeah. And so my partner goes in to detain him until we can figure out who he is, and he instantly starts fighting. I mean, this is a very athletic individual, and he's fighting off a couple of us very easily. And there's like 3 of us actively engaged with him. A gun falls out of his waist. And then what was funny is he had kind of thrown these other officers off, and it's just me, and he's got like 100 pounds on me. I'm on the dude's back, and I grab his pant leg, and I'm like holding his leg up, so he's hopping with me on his back, and then my corporal comes in and tackles him, spears him. Another gun falls out of this dude's waist, so I grab that gun and I secure it. At that time, we start taking fire from some of his gang members a few hundred yards away. And instantly I turned, drew my weapon, and it escalated very quickly. We got the guy, we got a backpack full of drugs. Well, the community was getting on to us, getting mad at us. So they're starting to surround us. And we're being surrounded by a little over 100 people, 5 of us, in a hostile environment. And I mean, they're getting in our faces. They're yelling and cussing and, bowing up to us. And, it became very hectic and could have become very bad very quickly. But we're trying to get this guy in the car, secured in the car. We got 2 guns that fell out of his waistband. He's got a backpack full of drugs and money. Like, he's a bad dude, and he just fought us. So we're already elevated with no chance of being able to come down and we just got shot at. So you're up here. So now you're being challenged by the community that you're trying to help. You're like, I'm here to get this bad guy off the street and make your community safer and allow your kids to be here, not to worry about being shot at. And y'all are coming at us. It's you struggle with it. You really do. You're like, why am I doing this job? People don't appreciate what we're doing. It's just a constant cycle of, I'm getting these bad guys off the street, but then we're being treated worse than they are.
Now, we were originally sitting down to record what would amount to be a 3 to 5 minute video that I could put on a blog site and I could use as an example in the GY6 events, where we just give story after story after story that people can relate to in terms of moral injury. Now, if you're wondering what that is, just take a link down in the show notes. You'll see right there just next steps for you. As I was listening to a story, though, because we're getting on to record maybe 5 to 10 minutes that I can then cut down into 5. We just keep dialoguing. We've known each other for several years, so we just keep on talking. And then he says, well, you need to know this story too. Oh, you need to know that. Oh, and then what about? And at some point it just clicks. And I think, when did we start holding police officers responsible for everything? I mean, goodness, they're visible, they're out there, they're authorized to represent the municipality in which they serve, and also as public representatives, they can stand in, other municipalities, other areas. We often see them at this crux of a really highly elevated event or a conflict, but all of a sudden in recent years, we've been holding them responsible for when somebody acts out and is suddenly the quote victim when they were the villain that caused the issue in the first place. And then we hold them responsible for things like mental health and homelessness. And let's just be honest, a lack of parenting in some areas where predictably people jump the tracks and behave in ways that when I was growing up, parents, my own and others, and school teachers and coaches, and you fill in the blanks, other adults stood in and they corrected and shaped us. And now it seems that we hold, just in my opinion, just an observation, police officers responsible for everything, when a lot of the stuff is stuff that we should be doing. Now, when the weight of that rolls out, there used to be kind of a direct cause and consequence. You do something, well, here's the result, good or bad. Listen to what Duffy says about the DA and pleading things down.
And you don't have that support always in the community. And then you're seeing the same people you arrest out within days that shouldn't be. The justice system, it feels like it fails you. And we often felt we were fighting a losing battle. So all that affects your mental psyche. I mean, and a lot of people probably don't realize this. The DEA, they don't always like prosecuting cases. So if they don't feel like they have a strong enough one in court, they'll try and plea it down. And so they'll say, okay, well, instead of a felony, we'll charge you with a misdemeanor, serve 6 months, and that's it. Well, to the DA, that's a guarantee, that's a conviction. So when they say I have a 98% conviction rate, it's all plead down. They're not really trying to get the bad guy the sentencing they deserve. So
they're just playing the percentages. Yeah, they're playing the percentages.
And they would ask us, hey, are you okay with pleading down? I'd be like, absolutely not. And they would be like, well, we just don't think we have enough. And I was like, that's not for me to decide. I get you think just pleading it down, but my statement, I feel is enough. The body cam footage, I feel is enough that they're going to be found guilty. I think it was just, they didn't want to back up the court system. I don't think they wanted to deal with having to prepare for court. It was just easier to
do the work.
Plea it.
Yeah, it's easier just to plead
it. We've agreed to this deal, sign it, walk out the door.
Yeah, and then they don't have to prepare. Man.
Yeah.
There's some of the tension right there that I wanted you to hear, that sometimes, again, the community isn't for the ones who are serving, protecting that community, bringing a wall of fire around them that shields them many times from danger that they remain unaware of. And other times, again, the perps plead down, and here's the tension that I want you to see. And this is why I chose to use those two stories kind of as the setup for what we're going to lead into a very personal story of his. The tension is that perps may plead down, yet the police officers, the ones who are there to protect and serve, we often pull them in and take an even closer look at what they did and almost micro-judge the minutia of everything they do in the line of duty. Okay, so let's go to some of the first days of his police role in Mobile, and Duffy's going to talk about an officer-involved shooting.
Originally, I did 10 years in the Coast Guard active duty and was medically retired in February of 2017. I knew that I was getting out and applied for Mobile Police Department, and it kind of lined up. The academy started in March of 2017, towards the end. So they hired me, and I was working with them in February and waited for the academy to start. So went through the academy. We graduated in the beginning of July and started my FTO training, where I was 3 months with the training officer, and then got set out on my own. So December of 2017, December 10th, 2017, we had a call come out of a wreck with possible injuries. Vehicle had flipped over, and fire and medics were en route. I was backing another officer on a traffic stop, and we had one officer that was the primary assigned officer en route. Made sure my buddy on the traffic stop didn't need me. We were still kind of dusk, so still good daylight. So he was like, yeah, we're good. So I cleared up and went as the backing officer. We pull up, firemen are already there, and they're running to us saying, y'all got to do something. He's trying to kill her. So in our mind, we were just showing up to a wreck with possible injuries, see this flipped over car. So we really weren't prepared for that statement, and it kind of threw you off guard, but you had to react quick. So we're like, wait, hold on, what? So they said, he's trying to kill her. And so we run up to the car. The vehicle is on its roof. He is the driver, the male subject, and he's on the roof of the car with the dashboard kind of crumbled in, pinning his leg down, so preventing him from really moving or being able to get out. She's still in the seatbelt, hanging upside down from the passenger seat.
They're in the car upside down.
They're in upside down, yeah. So
and he's trying to kill her.
So he's stabbing her in the neck, face. We couldn't really see what it was, what weapon he was using.
While they're upside down? He's committed.
Oh, he's committed. Yeah. And he's saying, I'm going to kill her. I'm going to kill her. She's screaming, please save me. He's trying to kill me. We see the blood running down her face. Like I said, she's upside down. So we know that, something major is happening. We know that he's trying to take her life.
I want to make sure you catch what's going on here. He thinks he's getting called to the scene of an accident.
MPD Chief Lawrence Baptiste says when officers arrived at the scene of an accident Sunday night on the interstate, they realized it was more than just an accident.
Now, here's a clip from NBC 15 in the Mobile area. It ran the following day. But again, he thinks he's going to the scene of an accident.
As they approached the vehicle, they could hear a female passenger stating that he's trying to kill me. He's trying to kill me.
Baptiste says 26-year-old Ira Crawford was inside the car stabbing his girlfriend, Jacola Seals.
I'm 3 months out of the training car. So I'm literally a brand new officer. And the officer that was the primary was maybe 2 years. So this was a scene that we originally were just, thinking, okay, a wreck with injuries. We're going to have to, direct traffic, work it as a wreck. To instantly, oh my God, he's killing this woman. So we knew we were jumped up through the steps that you usually, go through on your use of force. So we're already there at deadly force. Yeah, so you went from, hey, nothing, this is just direct, to use of force policy at deadly force authorized. And the taser wouldn't have worked. He was wearing, a coat, winter coats, those prongs aren't gonna go through. With him being pinned and having a weapon, we weren't gonna try and grab him. We couldn't even really get in effectively because it was crumbled and crushed, and it was gonna take more than anything. So we knew time was of the essence. So, my partner looked at me and he's like, I think we're gonna have to shoot him. And I was like, well, yeah. So,
Did he say it that calm?
Yeah, we were talking as calm as we are right now, both of us.
Asking because I've heard a lot of guys talk that say like that, like somehow, like some of the training just kicks in, and you're like just kind of logically having the conversation until you're not, and then it's like
you do. It's really weird. Some officers will get excited, and you can hear it on the radio. Some of us had the ability to somehow keep that calm demeanor and put that radio traffic out. And we're updating. He's the primary, so I'm letting him do all the talk on the radio, and we're telling him, hey, we've got this situation. This has turned into something. Our entire squad now has cleared off all their calls, and they're rushing to us. And this is all happening within just a couple of minutes. I mean, it really was fast. It felt like forever. It really was interesting how time is so different in those moments. How just a short amount of time feels like forever. And we set up, making sure that we had the triangulation, that we weren't to hit her. Her being upside down kind of helped because we were aimed at a more downward angle where he was, because like I said, he was technically laying on the roof, which is, it's upside down, so he's on the ground essentially. And we both shot and made our shots, and at that point, we went out on the radio, shots fired. Everyone in the city is now rushing to us.
He says officers Matthew Towie and Daniel Marlin told Crawford to drop the weapon several times, but he didn't and continued to stab Seals.
The officers were forced to take action. Both officers fired one shot, striking Mr. Crawford.
He says officers used a deadly force because Seals could not escape.
And it's unfortunately that sometime in our business, in the type of business that we do, that in order to save a life, we may have to take a life. And in this particular case, we were forced to take a life in the attempt to save a life.
Now that right there was also from NBC 15 in Mobile. That was the then Chief of Police, Lawrence Batista, talking. I'll play more from this clip in a moment.
I instantly know threat's done. Like, we eliminated the threat and ran over to the other side. The firemen have all left. They're in the truck. They're like, peace out. They're afraid of, I guess, the shooting part. And so they're just sitting in their truck. So I instantly start trying to rescue this woman, get her out of the vehicle, so we can get her proper treatment. Told her, hey, we're going to cut the seatbelt, you're going to fall. So she kind of placed her arms, worked to brace herself, kind of eased the fall as much as she could. Her window was so crushed too, she wasn't going to be able to crawl out that way. So I was like, okay, ma'am, I'm going to have you crawl to the back. It was an SUV. So the back window was still intact and it wasn't crushed, and we would be able to get her out. So I went to the back, broke that window. We were able to get her out. And by that time, the fire saw we were rescuing her and came and helped. And my partner kind of just ensured the threat was still eliminated, making sure nothing else, was going to pop off.
Mobile Police Chief Lawrence Batiste says that those two officers shot the man one time each. They say he was taken to the hospital where he later died.
And at that point, medics are there. We have more officers there. We're blocking the interstate off, shutting it down. It's an active crime scene now. And our shift lieutenant, he was there, our squad lieutenant. And by that time, and securing the perimeter, you got to secure the scene, making sure that evidence is preserved and everything. And at that point, me and my partner have nothing else to do. We're not allowed to do anything else. So we're just sitting there waiting.
You're going to have to turn in your gun, aren't you? Because
yeah. I mean,
because it's going to be like an investigation.
And it was. And, everyone's been alerted. So homicide, the chief of police, I mean, all of this has gone out to everybody. Again, I'm only 3 months shy, from the training car. I'm so green, and I'm thrown into this major incident.
I looked it up online before you go on.
Yeah.
So Pew Research says only 27% of officers ever fire the weapon.
Yeah, and most people don't realize
less than a third ever fire.
Yeah.
So the majority go through an entire career never even pulling it out of the holster.
Yeah, and I'm doing it in the first 6 months. And that's a lot to take in. It was what I signed up for, but still wasn't prepared that it was going to happen that quick. And you're getting asked all these questions by command, by your lieutenant, but you're also not supposed to talk, until my lawyer gets there, because we want to ensure that we protect ourselves. So luckily,
because they have to do it like a criminal
yeah.
It's a homicide. It's an active investigation now.
Yes.
Now, for some perspective, I want to talk about what happens when there's an officer-involved shooting. Earlier, we talked about sometimes the DA pleads down to get a conviction when there's a perpetrator that's done an obvious crime that in our minds would be easy to prosecute. It might take a little bit of work, but it seems testimony of the officer, body cam footage, it would be an easy and obvious slam dunk. Now let's look at the opposite. When it's an officer, it's often looked at even more closely and stringently, and there really is no plea down. What I want to do is play an extended clip that I found dated April 3rd, 2018. This is Chief Kerr Putney. He's from the Charlotte-Mecklenburg, North Carolina Police Department. It's old, so yes, it is from April of 2018. It is a different jurisdiction, different municipality, but this is pretty insightful, and it's back from years ago, about the same time period when Duffy was involved in the shooting.
The cornerstone of community policing is trust. We have to have the trust of our community that we're policing. A big investigation, a more complex investigation, is the officer-involved shooting investigation. What we want to do is educate you on that entire process. The whole point of this presentation is to give you an understanding of the process, and hopefully a byproduct will be your trust of that process.
Once an officer-involved shooting occurs, members of the media are proactively informed by the department's public affairs office to stage for a press conference at the scene where preliminary information will be released by the chief of police or one of the members of the executive staff. The community is directly informed of the preliminary circumstances from the public affairs office through social media. Traditionally, within 24 hours, the department will release updates involving the incident, identify the officers involved in the shooting to ensure proper context involving the incident. When an officer is involved in any shooting, the investigative process and reviews are conducted by the Charlotte-Mecklenburg Police Department and outside agencies, in addition to civilians. Here's a look at how the process develops. Immediately following an officer-involved shooting, the Charlotte-Mecklenburg Police Department's Homicide Unit's Officer-Involved Shooting Team, or OIST, responds to the scene to conduct a criminal investigation. The OIST will assume overall responsibility for conducting the criminal investigation. That investigation may consist of, but is not limited to, interviewing witnesses, reviewing video and audio recordings of body-worn cameras, gathering information, and reviewing evidence. They will work closely with crime scene investigators, members of the crime lab, and other appropriate personnel to ensure a thorough criminal investigation. Members of the OIST are professional investigators who specialize in officer-involved shooting cases. They leverage their years of experience in addition to cutting-edge technology and methods that allow them to conduct a meticulous investigation. The State Medical Examiner's Office leads the investigation of the deceased person and conducts an autopsy. The Mecklenburg County District Attorney's Office conducts an independent review and analysis of the ME's reports and criminal case file to determine if further investigation is needed or whether criminal charges filed against the officer may be appropriate. If the District Attorney's Office concludes that felony charges may be required, the case is presented to a grand jury to consider indictment. In addition to the criminal investigation, an administrative investigation is launched by the CMPD's Internal Affairs Bureau to determine whether the officer violated any department policies. Both the administrative and criminal investigations are conducted simultaneously. During the course of these parallel investigations, the officer involved in the shooting is placed on administrative leave.
Is that something they told you in the academy?
No,
Because it would have been helpful to know that on the front end. Hey, if you fire your weapon, here's what's going to happen, just so you know.
Yeah. So no, we knew that like you'd be investigated by internal affairs, any officer involved shooting. Knew that to get the facts and ensure and everything, but I didn't know that I was going to be interviewed by homicide. Luckily they talk about the PBA joining it, Police Benevolent Association. It covers you with lawyer protection. So kind of like a union, and you pay monthly dues and you get the benefits. And so we called their emergency number, said, hey, this is my PBA number, and we were just involved in an officer shooting. They contact a lawyer who calls us instantly, says, hey, I'm on my way, don't say anything. So he shows up to the scene. So we're still
now
there.
you can't say anything to the commanding officer whom you trust.
Right.
But so it's got all these weird layers.
It does. We gave them enough detail of, hey, this is what happened.
Yeah.
So they knew, because we knew that they need to know, so they can really know what kind of a perimeter is set, how they need to go about this, because whenever you do set a perimeter, you have to have a log of anyone and everyone that comes in and out of the crime scene area. And this is night. By the time we made this shot, now it's dark, you're on the interstate, and they have to find 2 shell casings, one for me and one for my partner. And that's not easy to do, especially when you've got broken glass and metal all over the place, medics coming in and out, so it's a hectic scene. So our lawyer shows up, we get into his vehicle, we both tell him our side, what his perspective was, mine, and he says, okay, this is what's going to happen. You are going to be investigated by the homicide unit. They're going to take you back to the station and interrogate you. I'll be with you. And that was like, oh my gosh, like I'm the good guy. What do you mean I'm going and being investigated by homicide?
He was going to kill her.
Okay, let's go back to the video from the Charlotte-Mecklenburg Police Department outlining the process.
Paid administrative leave usually lasts 3 to 5 days. During this leave, the officer is removed from line duties, but will remain available for administrative callback needs. At the discretion of the Chief of Police, The officer is returned to work on paid administrative assignment in their assigned division while the internal and criminal investigations are conducted. While on administrative assignment, the officer is prohibited from exercising police authority in both an on-duty and off-duty capacity. The officer will remain on administrative assignment until the conclusion of the criminal and administrative investigations. During this process, the officer is afforded all administrative rights as any other employee of the department and all constitutional laws as any other citizen during the criminal investigation. The Internal Affairs Sergeant assigned to the case will get a copy of the criminal investigation to assist in the internal investigation. The Homicide Unit will forward the completed criminal investigation packet to the District Attorney's Office for review of criminal charges. Once the District Attorney's Office has reviewed the case, the office will make a decision on whether to charge the officer with a crime or clear the officer of any criminal charges by determining the shooting was justified. An independent chain of command shooting board hearing will be scheduled following the decision made by the District Attorney's Office. The shooting board consists of high-ranking members of the CMPD and the City of Charlotte Community Relations Committee, which is made up of civilians. The board will critically evaluate the officer's actions to ensure CMPD policies and procedures have not been violated. If the board finds that the officer acted in accordance with CMPD policies and procedures, the officer will be removed from administrative assignment and returned to full duty status.
Now, just for clarity, there are different forms of city government. In this example, in North Carolina, they have a city manager. Sometimes some cities do, sometimes they don't. Some of them have a stronger mayor and a council. Some of them have a stronger council and a weaker mayor. There are different forms of city government. I do want you to notice, though, that there is further review. Further review, even after internal affairs and after the homicide investigation, there is further review. A lot of times people just think, oh, well, we just kind of set it and forget it. Notice.
Once the case is completed and all processes are complete, the case is subject to review by the Citizens Review Board. The Citizens Review Board serves as an advisory board of the Chief of Police, City Manager, and City Council. The board reviews appeals by citizens who file complaints on dispositions imposed by the Chief of Police or his designee related to allegations of misconduct against a sworn police officer. The board may review the disposition of any discharge of a firearm by an officer which results in the death or injury of a person. The request for review may be made by the person injured or the next of kin in the event of death. In the event the officer is cited for suspension, demotion, or termination, or if the officer chooses to appeal their discipline, their case is then heard before the Civil Service Board. While the collective investigations and reviews may take months to complete, those multiple layers of investigations and review are necessary in the pursuit of justice, to ensure transparency, and to ensure the investigation is thorough, factual, and accountable.
And so it really throws a whole different perspective into it. Like, now they're going to have to come at me like any other suspect, but I'm one of them. These are my brothers in arms, and they're looking at me to see, well, were you wrong, and do we have to charge you? So that's a real mind. I'm not going to say the word, but
well, I think everybody understands what you were thinking.
yeah. So you know, I have. At this time, I was married and I had kids, little kids. So now I'm worried, like, what's this could do? At this time, there's a lot of tension in police officer in the community. A lot of the racial tension that had been seen, you know, with the Michael Brown.
Right there, he mentioned the Michael Brown case and mentioned the tension. Now, that's been the scenario for quite a while, where police do something and then neighborhoods, communities around them might feel an oppression, or as if the police officers who are serving them are actually against them. And I'll say, you know, you look back at our history, particularly here in Birmingham, Alabama, where I live, there is some justification for some of that, but things have changed a lot. Now, I do want to remind you of something else that was occurring just prior to the shooting that Duffy was involved in. Here's a clip from 2018 from the CBS Evening News. So this is national. Now, Duffy's incident is right in the middle of you're going to remember this, the NFL starts kneeling, and then a couple more incidences that make national headlines. And then at some point, 2018, they stop. His incident was in the middle of all of that.
Good evening. We're going to begin tonight with the NFL's stand on players who choose not to. It became a divisive issue starting in 2016 when Colin Kaepernick began kneeling as a member of the 49ers. Some players followed suit both that season and the following. They say they're calling attention to racial injustice. But many NFL owners believe it disrespects the flag, and today they took action to stop it. Here's Jim Axelrod.
The National Football League's most divisive image the past 2 seasons will be prohibited this year.
If anyone is on the field and is disrespectful to the anthem or the flag, there would be a fine from the league against the team.
NFL Commissioner Roger Goodell announced a new no-kneeling policy that states during the anthem, all players on the field must stand or their team can be fined, which can then be passed on to players. Those not wanting to stand can remain in the locker room. Following the lead of quarterback Colin Kaepernick, NFL players began to kneel during the anthem to protest police brutality and racism in America.
Wouldn't you love to see one of these NFL owners, when somebody disrespects our flag, to say, get that son of a bitch off the field right now, out, he's fired.
President Trump consistently railed against the league and its players.
Just some other incidences across the nation. So it wasn't, a couple years prior, we had an officer that was in a shooting that they made a race issue. And
In Mobile?
they got harassed. His family got harassed. He had to leave the department, and they moved across the state or into another state. So knowing how much some of the community was harassing the family, that starts, creeping into my head. Now I'm like, oh my gosh, this is affecting not just me, but now it's affecting my entire family potentially. What's gonna happen with my kids at school, and so those thoughts are starting to run into my head. So, we were told, hey, drive to headquarters. Homicide was on scene, but so we drove over and met with them.
Just for clarity, because we're bouncing around a little bit, Duffy's now talking about what happened immediately after the shooting.
So they put me in an interrogation room, separate from my partner, and we're in there for like 30 minutes. Just
like your criminals.
Yeah.
Like where you separate the suspects.
Yeah. And I think prior to getting into the room, what we did have to do is the crime scene investigators, they were there to take our firearm. They had to take pictures of us, how we were outfitted, how the fire was, how many bullets we had. Because I said I want it, so they're counting the bullets of all this. So now I don't have my firearm, and so that's now starting to cause thoughts. Well, crap! I'm about to be driving in a police car with a badge, identified as a police officer, but I don't have my firearm. So, you start thinking, well, what if something happens on the way home? What if, we have a situation where someone, sees a cop and tries to come up to our window and shoot us, so now those thoughts are running in my head. So all these scenarios. So I'm like, okay, I've got to not think about that stuff. So
now notice right here what he's about to do. He is going to write it down. A lot of times you learn that writing things down is not only cathartic, it helps you make mental connections and really process through what occurred. You're about to see that it's going to serve him extremely well.
They had brought me like water, and I said, "Hey, can I have some paper?" And they brought me some paper, and I just started writing down everything that happened from the moment the call went out to the moment of me sitting in this interrogation room, so I can at least focus. And I'm putting everything on paper as it's fresh.
Yeah, your mind's not shooting, all over.
Yeah, I even drew a diagram, like vehicle upside down, where my partner was, where I was, our triangulation. Um, I was very detailed in it. So then, when the homicide detectives comes and interviews us, and my lawyer's with me at that time, um, so at the end of it, they're like, "Hey, man, this is a good shoot. This is just procedure. Y'all did good." So that was a relief.
They told you that same evening, like after the
Well,
questioning?
they basically were saying, "Hey, we don't see any issues with this." From what sounds like it was a good shoot. They were watching the body cam footage, making sure the stories kind of line up. So automatically, you 5 days off for a shooting.
Did you know
Probably not
about
enough.
that beforehand?
No,
Like,
no,
okay, so you did not know that they're gonna do an investigation
did
beforehand,
not.
and you did not know it's gonna be mandatory. Five
Five
sounds like
days.
a lot, but you just said
Yeah.
not enough.
It was a very long 5 days, and you are doing a lot. Like, we went to a psychologist who
Yeah.
spoke with us to make sure we were still okay. Um, then IA, after a couple days, you go and get interviewed again by internal affairs, and you go through everything again and walk them through it. And it was actually kind of funny. My dad grew up with one of the IA officers, and because he's from Mobile, so my dad kind of just reached out to him. I didn't know he was, but just was like, "Hey, is Duffy okay?" And he was like, "Man, he was impressive on the interview. Like, everything matched from detail to detail." He said his partner had some things that didn't make sense. Your son's interview cleared everything up, and there's no worries.
Well,
So
because that guy had been in a high elevated event.
yeah, yeah.
I mean,
So
whether it was as a coping or as a mechanism or as a wisdom, or take time to write it down and
yeah, and
draw it, probably helped you.
it did, and I credit a lot of it to my Coast Guard days, because I was a federal law enforcement officer for the Coast Guard. Now, I'd never
Okay.
been involved in a shooting or anything crazy investigative. We did a lot of counter drug terrorist operations, so it was a different type of law enforcement. But I think it at least prepared me somewhat to know, okay, I need to write this down while it's fresh. I need to, you know, run everything through my head, making sure I saw things correctly. But they said I was impressive, that I cleared up some details that were not clear from my partner's statement, because they interviewed him first. Um, he forgot where he was standing. He couldn't remember what side of the car he was on, and he had us backwards. Um,
Okay, make note of all of this. The officers are on administrative leave, but they're working. They're working on the event that just occurred and going deep into what happened, why it occurred. Still wondering, still worried, in my mind, about grand juries, possible legal issues, potential blowback from the community, even from the national community.
so then they actually take us to the impound lot where they took the car, and they put the car in the same position as it was on the interstate and had us do a walkthrough of everything.
Upside down.
And yeah,
Back
they had
to
they had it like it was when we showed up, and we run through the whole thing like when we got there. Walked up to it from the same direction, what we did, how we did it, ran through the entire scenario.
did that
Homicide's
create
there, IA's there,
did that create like
command's
traumatic
there.
recall, or was it pretty just objective?
Uh, at this time, it was still very objective. On the Christian side of me, I knew I felt justified because I saved a woman's life. What I think was more traumatic was the stress of worrying about this was still going to a grand jury and they could still say, we think there's enough to go to trial. Knowing that the community potentially was going to be up in arms because I was a white officer that did shoot a black male subject. And, we're in a weird racial tension during this time. And in fact, command after the 5 days, which you probably do need more time to settle down, and kind of process.
Well, you're working the 5 days. The 5 days, it sounds like you're
not
psych
off.
eval interviews, internal affairs, walking through
and you have to go to the range and get issued a new firearm and qualify on that firearm. So yeah, in those 5 days, you are exactly right. You're working. So you're not really sitting down, which I think is a good thing in some aspects because you're not like overthinking it and getting too deep into your mind, where maybe that isn't best if you're, especially don't have a counselor. But at the same time, you're so busy, you're not really processing either. So we get all that. I'm ready to get back with my squad because they're down 2 people, and that's a lot. And we're in a city that's busy. We're pretty active. After being back a couple days, they're like, hey, Jesse Jackson and some of these people are planning on coming down here and protesting, and they're trying to make an issue of this.
Are you going to get the Al
really
Sharpton treatment?
Now, what I mean by the Al Sharpton treatment is, well, sometimes they're great at drawing attention to much needed issues. That's fact. But also sometimes they're not so great. Now, here's a clip from WKNB 7 on March 20, 2015 about the Michael Brown incident. Let me play that and then we'll make a few observations.
It is the mantra of a movement started in Ferguson, Missouri, after the shooting of unarmed black teenager Michael Brown by white police officer Darren Wilson. Hands up, don't shoot spread across America like wildfire, from Ferguson to New York to Los Angeles. Hands up, don't shoot! To the halls of Congress, to the NFL football field, even CNN contributors throwing up their hands. There's only one problem.
It's no good. It's not true. It is either based on a lie or based on a misinterpretation of what happened.
Federal and local authorities say the evidence shows hands up, don't shoot didn't happen. The final Department of Justice report concludes Michael Brown's hands were not up in surrender when he was shot and killed by Officer Wilson. So where did it come from? Brown's friend the day of the shooting.
His weapon was already drawn when he got out the car. He shot again, and once my friend felt that shot, he turned around and he put his hands in the air, and he started to get down, but the officer still approached with his weapon drawn, and he fired several more shots.
Federal and local authorities say he's wrong, but there are still plenty in the protest movement who are convinced Brown had his hands up. But few have read the nearly 100-page report. We did. Here's what the witnesses closest to the incident who spoke to federal investigators and the grand jury say. Witness 102, a biracial male, for sure that Brown's hands were not above his head. Witness 103, a black male, reluctant to meet with FBI agents, stating snitches get stitches, eventually did talk. He had one of the best views of the shooting and says he did not see Brown's hands up and witnessed Brown moving fast towards Wilson. Witness 104, a biracial female with a clear view of the scene, says she heard the shots fired inside Wilson's car that hit Brown in the hand. She then saw Wilson hop out of the car and yell, "Stop, stop, stop." Brown ran, then turned around, and for a second began to raise his hands as though he considered surrendering, but then quickly balled up his fist and charged at Wilson. In a stunning admission, she told investigators Wilson waited a long time to fire his gun, adding, "She would have fired sooner." Witness 105, a 50-year-old black female, says she noticed Brown put his hands up for a brief moment, but then turned around, made a shuffling movement, and put his hands down in a running position and ran towards Wilson. Most of this not made public until long after the shooting, and that was too late to silence the slogan.
Now, here, at the end of the clip, it's going to continue. It seems like we're just excusing. When the narrative doesn't fit, there often seems to be a, don't bother me with the facts, I've already made up my mind approach.
I deal with the fact that other witnesses also say his hands were up. But you know what? On some level, that's still minutia because we're debating whether or not his hands were up, but we're not debating whether or not he's dead or alive. We know for a fact that he's dead. Whether his hands were up or not, he's not here, and he didn't have a weapon.
But the argument is that if he wasn't surrendering, then there's a justification.
To me, that's a repetitive tactic that's been used against black males when dealing with the police for the longest. You can root back to slavery with that tactic, where you have to find a way to villainize the victim and find the smallest means to justify why this officer had to use deadly force.
The report shows Officer Wilson was justified, but in this case at least, the facts can't stop a slogan. Sarah Seiner reporting for CNN.
Now I'm really worried about my family. And I think that's where I had more of the struggle was, how is this going to affect them? What's going to happen? And, now I'm on more alert too, because now I'm a target. People maybe start looking for us to harass us.
Did they publish your names in the paper or anything?
They did. Yeah.
I mean, I figured they would because
yeah,
everybody knows who. I mean, you can look it up at the time. Everybody knew who shot Michael Brown.
Right.
You would think should not have known that. My opinion, but
yeah. I mean, now knowing here's Jesse Jackson planning on coming down. They're talking on social media. This is another racist cop shooting a black male, and it's like, that's not me at all. It was all I saw was a man killing a woman, actively stabbing her, saying he's going to kill her, and I did what I was trained to do.
Yeah, it wouldn't have mattered. Red, yellow, black, white. It wouldn't have mattered.
Yeah. And it's like, no one wants to understand our side and that we're people too. It's just attack them to push an agenda. Now, luckily, what ended up happening is because they were posting a lot on social media saying we're going to be on our way. We're going to meet at these locations to protest and all that. And
right here is what prevented Mobile from becoming a national scene.
The female subject actually got on there and said, I was the woman involved. These officers weren't racist. They saved my life. And because she did that, man, we were so lucky that they didn't come down. They said, oh, okay, well, we don't have any footing here. So that was a relief knowing that. I was more worried about that.
It killed the police brutality narrative when she said that.
Yeah. Because, look at the Michael Brown situation. Look at all these other police cases that are brought to national media and how much those officers had to go through and endure and their families. And so that was hitting me. And it was like, oh my gosh, this is happening.
Now we're going to pick up the story in part 2. That will be the next episode of the podcast here. We'll be in episode number 49. Again, in the end, I want you to notice this. We often hold police officers responsible for a wide range of societal ills, probably in large part because they're visible, maybe in some sense because they're authorized with power and they do carry around a badge and a gun and they're positioned at the intersection of a lot of the big issues that we can currently bump into: crime, mental health, conflict. But I do want you to notice, when other social systems break down, when education tanks, when healthcare goes downhill, when mental health care goes downhill, when housing prices soar and homelessness escalates, police are often the one-size-fits-all response to all of that. And you see people complaining about it, but you don't see a lot of people offering valid solutions. Yeah, for sure, we need to work on it. We need to come together and figure it out. How do we take care of people in our society and at the same time recognize that police cannot replace parenting? Police cannot fix a lack of manners, disrespect, basic human decency. We call them when we need them. Generally, we call them when there's an elevated situation. There's something that we can't fix, so they become the professional fixers. And when they come, they generally bring the absolute best of themselves. They pick up the worst, they make a swap. It's not a fair trade. It takes a toll. And so to the officers, we'll continue it in the next episode, but right now we pause and we say, thank you. You look out for us. You have our back in ways that most of the time, honestly, on any given day, we don't realize when we need you, that we will need you that day. And so the prayer for everyone as we conclude this episode, but especially for the men and women in blue, is that the Lord would bless you, He'd keep you, be gracious, shine His face of favor upon you. May He give you courage when you need it. May He give you rest that matches the intensity that you put out to every single one of us. Grace and peace.